How are we doing, goalies? Welcome back to the DIY Goalie Podcast with your hosts, as always, Nathan Park and Connor Monday. And this would not be a DIY Goalie Podcast episode without 6 attempts to try and get this recording. And here we are. I don't have a webcam again, but that's okay. We're having fun. You know what? We have a spicy episode today. And we just had to get a little worked up with technical difficulties first so that we can be even spicier on today's episode. So
I've been trying to keep quiet this entire time. And I can't.
So for whatever reason, I don't know why, anytime we hit record for the last 5 times, after 10 seconds, it says recording failed to begin. So we are a minute in. We are doing good. We are here to stay. I'm hoping anyways. Probably just jinxed it. But we're going to get going. So today's topic, do we have a goaltending problem in Canada? The answer is yes. Good episode. Thanks for joining us today. We will see you guys next week because I don't know if we're going to get any more out of this.
Well, if you let me take over, I guess. Oh boy!
Can you tell I'm riled
hey
up
guys,
today?
how's it going? Nice to see everybody.
Nathan's raging.
Nathan's PO level is through the roof. We have ambulances on standby in case. It's a tough go for Mr. Park today, but you know what? We're here. It's fine. The Oilers are not losing, so you know all's well that could potentially end disastrous.
Because it's 30 seconds in after puck drop.
Hell yeah. Anyways, yes, we are here to talk about what's wrong with goaltending here in Canada. We have noticed a bit of a decline when it comes to goaltending in Canada, particularly in goaltending development. Now, it's not necessarily to say that there's a goaltending shortage in Canada, which there is to a certain extent, but it's more so like Canada hasn't produced good goaltending in the last little bit. Like I think like the top names for Canadian goaltending right now are Jarry, Hill, and Skinner.
It's definitely not Jarry. Even when it comes to Canadians, Jarry.
Really? I thought it was. I thought it saw his name floating around there.
Yeah, you probably saw his name floating around because the Penguins sent him home, or that was the rumor anyways. You laugh, but I don't know if it's true. I haven't had a chance to check yet, but supposedly he was sent packing. Or at least, I don't know. Anyways, I haven't had a chance to look. Don't quote me on that. I don't know what the details are, but it's definitely not Jarry in the top. You're probably looking at Hill, Binnington, Skinner, maybe Montembeault. Those are probably your top 4 potentials. But yeah, so basically we're looking at what the systemic problems are with hockey in Canada and why goaltenders are struggling at the highest levels when it comes to Canadians, and realistically what we as a country can be doing better. I can't really speak for other countries, but I'm going to pull up some stats that I kind of went back and looked at, and we're going to go through the trends, and then we're going to kind of talk about anecdotally what we've seen have been issues and potential solutions that we have. But basically what it comes down to is I believe Hockey Canada's dropped the ball big time, especially for those of you that listen to the In Goal Magazine podcast. They've had some of the American goalie development guys on, and they have talked a lot about their plan. Like they have a goal of 50 by 30 or something like that. And it's 50% they want, or 51 by 30. That's what it is. and they want 51% of the minutes played in the NHL and the PWHL to be USA hockey goalies by 2030. Is it going to happen? We'll see. They've got a long ways to go in 5 years, but as I'll show when we pull up the statistics that I kind of grabbed, they're trending in the right direction. And to me, listening to, guys in USA hockey talk about that, they're talking about their mentorship with guys like, Nedeljkovic, Demko, Ottinger actually being mentors for goalies within their USA hockey program. And the fact that last year, I guess they had 2,200 coaches across the nation that had at least their goalie bronze level certificate. That to me shows me that they're doing the right things. The other thing that shows me other countries are doing the right things is the fact that the Russian machine is just pounding out goalies like no tomorrow. And then traditionally in the last 15-ish years, Finland and Sweden have had a pretty good record of solid goaltending. So we will dive into that. We will give our thoughts. We will give our takes. Things are going to get a little spicy. That's okay. I'm excited for this one, and I'm probably going to get a little riled up. I'm already riled up, so let's go.
it, before we do, I did I'm not going to be focusing on the statistics side of things. I think I kind of took this a little bit in a different direction, not intentionally. I did reach out to some buddies of mine. I only ended up getting a response back, but I did ask them, like, since we are doing a podcast on what's wrong or what's going on. I think was I quoted it as what's wrong with minor hockey development when it comes to goaltending in Canada. So I do have a really nice blurb here from him that I think would be interesting as well. Probably stuff that we already know as a goalie union here in Canada, but I think it's some good points here to reiterate. So I don't know where specifically you want to start with this.
Well, I think what we'll do maybe is we'll dive into the numbers because I haven't shown you them either. So this will be interesting.
My
And
favorite
then,
stats.
yeah, I know. But, and then from there, I think we can kind of go into our thoughts and our takes and kind of go from there.
Sure.
Um, just out of curiosity, before I share my screen to those watching on YouTube, um, I'm going to get what your guess is in the 1989-1990 season, what the percentage of goalies in the league were that were Canadian.
I wasn't even born then at that point. Well, it's got to be plus 50, maybe sub 85, somewhere in that range. I mean, like, I know that's like a wide
Yeah, I
margin,
was
but
gonna say.
let's go. Okay, let's say plus 60, sub 85.
Yeah, you're in the right range. So 80% of the goalies in 89-90 were Canadian. Okay. So now let's move to 2009, 2010. What's your percentage? What's your guess?
See, I remember this vaguely because there's Luongo, Price, Fleury,
Yeah,
and
this
now
is
I'm
like
blank.
all the goalies from top to bottom, whoever played at least one game.
And that's from 2009 to when?
Well, it's the 09-10 season. So
Oh, nine
just
ten season.
just the
Oh, okay,
season. Yeah.
gotcha. Um, probably maybe about the same. I'm gonna say sub 7. No, I'm gonna say sub 80 plus. Probably about the same. Sub 85 plus 60.
So we're down to 49.4% for
Wow. Okay.
2009, 2010. What's our guess for last season?
Oh, definitely like minus 40, minus 30.
33.7%.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do, I'm now going to share my screen. Okay. So I kind of took percentages of goalies and percentages of minutes played by nationality. So 89-90, 80% of the goalies were Canadian and 85.8% of minutes played were from Canadian goalies. You move to 1999 to 2000, so that season, 10 years later, we've dropped from 80% of the goalies to 71.1, and we've dropped from 85.8% of the minutes played to 65.6. Another 10 years later in the 09-10, we dropped from 71.1% of goalies to 49.4, and we dropped from 65.6% of minutes played to 44% of minutes played. 5 years later, so I did most recently kind of 5 year in intervals.
Okay.
So from 09-10 to 14-15, we dropped from 49.4 to 40.2% of goalies are Canadian. And we go from 44% of minutes played down to 41.8% of minutes played. We go another 5 years to 2019-2020. 37.9% of goalies are Canadian, 39% of minutes played. And last season, 33.7% of goalies were Canadian and 29.4% of minutes played were from Canadian
What's
goalies.
what's the threshold here? Like is there a certain amount of games played in the NHL, or is it John Smith is
Well,
Canadian, so he is stat?
yeah, so this includes every single goalie that played at least one game. So
Okay.
that's why I wanted to do the percentage of goalies and also do the percentage of minutes played. So that kind of gives you an idea of what countries are kind of, shooting over their bar, I guess, or punching over their weight. That's what I'm that's what I'm looking
Yeah.
for. Um in terms of elite level goalies. Because to me, if you have a higher percentage of minutes played compared to your percentage of goalies, that means you have a higher percentage of your goalies that are, you know, eating up more minutes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of see 2014-15 and 2019-20, Canada had more percentage of minutes played versus their percentage of goalies. But if you think about it, you have guys like Price, Luongo, Fleury, those kind of guys that are really eating up minutes. Last season, 33.7% of goalies are Canadian, but only 29.4% of minutes played are from Canadian goalies. So that's a difference of 4.3% to the negative side. So, like, to me, you're when you think about Canadian goalies right now, who's really big, reliable minute munchers, right? I mean, yes, Stuart Skinner plays a lot of minutes. Yes, there's like some injuries when it came to like Aiden Hill and, stuff like that. But realistically, like, we're a few months away from the Four Nations Cup. Like, how confident are you in the top three Canadian goalies that are going to be picked for that tournament, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you look at like the States and Russia, which are the two that are definitely trending in the right direction. Um, you have a hard decision to make as to who you leave off your team. Like, whereas
Yeah.
Canada's hard decision is to be put on the team. Like the States, if he's healthy, you have Demko. You've got Ottinger, you've got Swayman, you've got Hellebuck, you've got Nedeljkovic, who's kind of, a step down from there. But like right there, if Demko's healthy, you have four quality guys that you have to leave one off of. Same with Russia. You have Vasilevsky, you have Bobrovsky, you have Sorokin, you have Shesterkin. That's a tough decision to leave one of them off. I mean, most likely it's Sorokin just because he's not really, he doesn't usually get as much love, but that's still a tough decision to leave a guy like that off of your team.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's interesting. And again, like we were talking about earlier with the United States 50-51 by 2030. Like
yeah,
I think last year was definitely a big showing for them, right?
yeah.
And so to
Well,
see that and like to see the numbers with it, right? I mean, like it's not much, but I mean, like the trend can realistically only go up from there for the States in that regard, right? So that's
Yeah.
interesting, and it puts definitely into perspective the numbers that you have here. Um, that's interesting just to see that.
So in 2019, 2020 US, they had 18% of the minutes played. And then last season, that jumped up to 22.3.
Right.
And that's going to keep climbing, especially since it's pretty much Swayman's net now in Boston. Now, the Demko injury kind of throws, a bit of a wrench in things, but there's even some quality, like mid range, NHL goalies from the States. Uh, like, off the top of my head, why can't I think of any? But, like it's one of those things. I think, isn't Hofer
Yeah, I think
American?
Hofer.
Yeah,
Yeah, Hofer would
Hofer's
be one.
American. Hold on, let's
Wall
pull it up
is
here.
Wall
Uh,
or is
no,
Wall
I think
Canadian?
Wall's Canadian.
Okay,
Um, so yeah, if we just look at the list here, Stellars, yeah, he's
dollars.
American.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's good. You even got like Joey Decord, Alex Lyon, Dustin Wolf, Charlie Lindgren, Casey DeSmith, Caden Primo, Spencer Knight. Like there's a solid, and then you even look at, like Jonathan Quick, who's still kicking around, and, like the States has a solid, um, you know, like bank of goalies. Um, yeah, it does look so. Yeah, Hofer is Canadian.
okay,
Um, but yeah, so right now, in terms of minutes played, your top Canadian is Connor Ingram. Um, and he's sixth on the depth chart. Your next, and I know it's early in the season so far, but your next Canadian is 12th on the list, and that's Jordan Binnington.
right.
Um, so yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know. I
that's
mean,
it. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like it just puts things into perspective, right? That's the thing, and it makes me wonder then what the. I mean, I know we'll probably talk about it later in the pod, but it makes me wonder then what the is there like there's got to be a problem with the development somewhere and the exposure more so for these goalies in that regard. I think of goalies like just in recent, not Memorial Cup, in recent World Junior tournaments. Right, there was Mike DiPietro and Nico Dawes and
Devin Levi.
Devin Levi, and there was another one that I was thinking of. Maybe it was Dawes, but we still haven't really heard much, if or anything from them, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean, like definitely like the competition in that regard is competitive. What a sentence. But it just like we haven't heard anything from those guys since, right? And
yeah,
so really makes me wonder then what's wrong with the development side.
yeah. And I've got some hot takes on that. But just one more thing I wanted to point out, and unfortunately, my spreadsheet didn't save this part for whatever reason, couldn't recover it. But I did also go through the Vezina Trophy finalists. So not just the winners, but also the finalists by nationality. And since 2017, there has only been one Canadian in the finalists for Vezina. And that was the year Fleury finally won his Vezina. Outside of that, there has not been a single Canadian since 2017 that has been a Vezina Trophy finalist. So, and when you look back, kind of before that, there was, you saw Canada a lot all over that list. That was back,
Mm-hmm.
Carey Price. Fleury did have a few finalists before he actually won it. And then you're going back to, like Holtby and J.S. Giguere and guys like that back in the day. But that was another interesting thing that I found, that in the last 7 years, only one Canadian has been a Vezina Trophy finalist. And yes, he did win it, but yeah. So that's kind of the overview. One thing I do want to point out, though, I mean, the 89-90 with 80% of the goalies and even 99-2000, like naturally that's going to drop off significantly just based on the fact that with globalization that we've seen over the years, it's easier to connect, Europeans and Russians and people from around the world to North America to come out and scout these guys and bring them overseas and have them play out here. So naturally, there would be a significant decline there. But I do think that seeing the trend continuing in recent years, and yes, our population compared to places like the States and other countries is significantly lower, but I do think that it does show that there is a problem, because to me there is. And yeah, the numbers could be skewed a little bit by that, but I do think that there is more of an issue there as well. So, and maybe we'll start getting into that then.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna have to get you to send me that spreadsheet because that's interesting.
Yeah, one thing I guess too, just to show, like I said with the minutes played, but Russia and the States have really exploded. Like there is a 4.3% difference in minutes played to the upside for USA between 1920 and 23-24,
Mhm.
and a 5.1% upside to Russia, for minutes played from 1920 to 23-24. So they went from 10.8% to 15.9. And in that time span, the States went from 18 to 22.3. And conversely, Canada's gone from 39 to 29.4. So, yeah.
Do you think it's a product of other countries have realized that they can't beat us in the player department, so they start going to other departments to try to beat us at?
Hmm. I don't personally think so, no. I think there's other factors to it. Um, I personally think other countries are just doing a better job of developing their goalies
Okay, so
and
let's
like ingrained in their system.
let's get into that then. So which will kind of transition into my text here from a buddy of mine who's coaching out in BC. I think um, it's no secret that obviously development in Canada for goaltending is less than subpar, to say the least. I mean, the Hockey Canada model as it currently sits right now is not a good one. It's even so hard to find, in
I
fact.
was gonna say,
Uh,
what even is Hockey Canada's goalie development model?
there
Like,
there
tell
is
me.
there isn't none. If I were to go to Hockey Canada goaltending right now, obviously I'm doing this by the seat of my pants. Hockey Canada skill development when it comes to goaltending, it there's no even real path as I look at it on the player development
Yeah.
side of
Here.
things right now. It's just oh hey, you're U9, hey, here's this try goaltending session. And then U13 junior minor hockey. There's no real path, and then they have laid out 5 practice plans here. I mean, they do have Hockey Canada does have a goaltending resource. What
Yeah.
is this? This
Why
is a
don't you share
goaltending
your
resource.
screen
Sure, gladly.
so
I
people?
can't right now because you're
Oh, we
taking that up.
can't
But
share at the same time. Oh, that sucks,
no,
because I
unfortunately
wanted to pull up the USA hockey site while you had the Hockey Canada site on, and we could compare.
not. Fair. I'm briefly skimming
Here,
through
there
this
you go.
here. Here, let me do this. Window, that window, share. There we go. Okay. So I'm briefly skimming through this here. Okay, and so this is the Canadian goaltending pathway from 2022 to 2023. So clearly up to date. And so they have their table of contents and like who's this intended for? What's the goal? What's the purpose and everything? And here's Tom Rennie, failed Oilers goalie, failed Oilers coach. Um, and then what is the goaltending pathway? Goaltending is a critical aspect of team play and requires direct and consistent unique coaching skills.
Ha.
Okay.
They don't follow
Um,
that up at all.
not like it's how to play hockey. Well, you have to be coachable and you have to have consistent technique, and it requires coaching skills. As far as in defense, okay, we're not even talking about forwards and defenders here. We're talking about as forwards and defenders get specific coaching for their respective positions. Goalies require the same attention and guided skill development. The main goal is to make the beginner's impression a good one. Okay, well, what is Hockey Canada doing to show that? Apparently, Google thinks that there's nothing to do about it, but all right. Uh, my Google Home went off, is what happened. So again, like I'm going on. Okay, so U9, U11, minor hockey associations. Okay, Microsoft, go away. Minor hockey associations to offer try goaltending sessions. I have yet to even hear about that out
There's
here.
a few, but I see more try goalie sessions put on by private companies,
Oh shit.
like along the lines of like True North Goaltending,
Yeah.
as opposed to um, like organizations. Now, some of them do, the odd one do, but for the most part, it's like, to me, that should be something that's like across the board. Like, I don't know how much they work or not, and I haven't even seen them, but I know in Goal Magazine, the guys from USA Hockey have talked about these quick change pads. So they have these specific pads made that go over top of player shin pads so that in the U9 level, they can actually get multiple kids to try goalie in one practice or in one game, because they have like two clips of these pads that pop off. They throw them on the next kid over top of their shin pads, and then they hop in the net. So again, I don't know how much that does and how much it helps, but at least it's something different. They're trying something.
Yeah, and that's it, as much as it is up to associations like us, for example, at True North Goaltending, to offer the development. No parent is realistically going to be spending the charge that maybe we offer, right? To have and spend all the money on equipment for hand me downs and whatever else. There's like no parent is realistically going to do that to have their kid maybe like goaltending, right?
Yeah.
And so like as you were going through that, I was looking at Hockey Alberta here, and I can touch on this too. And it's the basics of goaltending, but again, there's no from what I see immediately. Anyways, I'd have to actually do some digging on this. Is that there's no
We only see the
immediate.
Canada one though. You gotta like
Yeah,
change your
I
screen.
know.
Oh, okay.
I'm not showing that.
Oh,
So
there it is.
here's the Hockey Alberta one. All right, so it's basically breaking down the position by um, skating progressions and puck tracking and track or positioning and whatever else you want to put in here. So I mean, it's going on an
That's
in
better.
depth position, which is fine,
Yeah.
you know, but it is up to these yahoos right here to have a standard set across all associations, right? So this kind of bullet point here kind of pisses me off a little bit, because for U15 and U18 here with Hockey Canada, an association goaltending coach to guide the developmental process of goaltenders. This should be right up in here. What is this? This line, copy. If I had a paste button, paste. Right?
What,
Like
you don't
this,
you don't
like
you
this,
don't
this.
want to only have U15 to U18 goalie coaches?
I honestly believe that every level needs to have a dedicated goalie coach. That's in
Yeah.
my own little perfect world here. And the reason I say that is because that is really the time to develop the skills that these kids have. Right? U9, we see at True North Goaltending, we'll see U9s, U11s, U13s sporadically throughout um the season. You'll see them all congregate together for a week-long summer camp. But then beyond that, what other development are they getting? Right?
Yeah.
What other dedicated development are they getting? They see us, okay, like with one of the associations that we're with right now, and I think you know which one I'm talking about. We'll see those guys maybe what 5 times throughout the year, depending spread out through all the teams that this organization has, something along those lines.
Yeah. Like,
So, case in
g-
point, right? You see,
yeah.
you see the point in the rabbit hole that I'm trying to go down here is that like you from U9 to U13, that is prime time development. That
Yeah.
is 100% prime time development. It's no different than for the skaters at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
For
So,
U15 and sorry, and now you got me
yeah.
heated on this. For U18 to U15, I totally understand, and I also agree with the point that they're going at here with this. But I think that but from the ages of U9 to U13, there should be more than, oh hey, we're gonna bring these guys out twice a month or once a month or whatever to do some type of goaltending development with them there. And I think that's where, for me, just by reading this point alone and by making my own assumptions and making me look like a jerk, that's where we're losing the development a little bit.
yeah. So
Tell me I'm
actually,
wrong.
well, I'm not going to. um, because yeah, like earlier this week, I actually had a U13 director. So not a goalie director, but just the
Okay.
director for U13 in one of the organizations around here. They reached out. He's a goalie dad, and he basically said, we're looking to offer more. Like, we want, basically, they asked to if we could do like a seminar for their coaches on how to be better for their goalies. And to
DIY podcast
me,
live.
yeah, to
Sorry.
me, that's kind of sad that they have to reach out to a private company and ask for that sort of resource for their coaches. And what he said to me is, he said their U15 um age group is struggling because they have, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was something like they have 8 teams and they have 6 goalies in U15, and they're scrambling because they don't have enough goalies for their teams. So their thought process is, well, we want to, for our U13s, we want to give all our coaches the chance to learn about the position and do more, so that our goalies get a little bit more development and they actually want to be goalies and stick around. My big thing with Hockey Canada is everything is kept under wraps so much. Like, they keep things to their chest way too much. Like,
100
you,
percent.
yeah, like the guys on the In Goal Mag podcast talking about their USA Hockey development program and their goals. They they said they had 2,200 coaches that had a minimum of a bronze level goalie certification.
But
Now,
is that mandated by USA Hockey?
not yet. Um, the guy talked about the logistics of that being a little bit tough, but they want to try and kind of work towards that.
Okay.
But that's not something that they kind of do overnight. Now, the contrast to that is over in Sweden and Finland, is where they do actually have goalie coaches on every single team, or at least coaches that know about goaltending, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily straight up goalie coaches. But the other thing too, like if you go back to episode 2, I think it was when we had Tim Turk on, and he was talking about the experience in Europe, and he's talking about how the goalie coaches are driving around in Ferraris or Lambos or whatever because they are compensated accordingly, because they are like the cream of the crop over there. Whereas here, you know who your goalie coach is? The goalie's dad,
Yeah.
because they're like, my kid's not getting any development. So I need to take it on myself and I need to figure out something. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to go on USA Hockey's website, because they actually have practice plans and drills for their goalies on their website, and they're not going to go to the Hockey Canada website because they don't have that. And now that I'm on this tangent, because I was going to get to this eventually, but here we are, we're on it now. Um, I did uh, it was some sort of future leaders development program that was put on by Hockey Alberta. I did that when I was in college, because they offered it. It was a free kind of coaching program for um, like college students. And this was just regular coaching. It wasn't goalie coaching. It was just regular coaching. So they put it out to like college and university teams for hockey players that wanted to come out. So I signed up. I went. Um, it was a good weekend, good program, whatever. But afterwards, we got access to whatever the Hockey Canada like app is, like the coaching kind of resource app that they have.
Yeah. Right.
And so we got that for free, but most people have to pay for that. So if you're a coach within the Hockey Canada umbrella and you want to, you know, get these coaching resources, you have to pay for it, and you have to pay for it yearly. And not only that, but when I was on, like, I got rid of the app a long time ago because it's useless. I mean, maybe they've updated it since, but I went on, and the Hockey Canada app for goaltending had one practice plan per age group, like basically one U9 to U11, one U13, one U15 to U18 practice plan. You go on USA Hockey and they've got loads, and they probably have even more for their actual constituents that are part of USA Hockey that have access to that sort of stuff, right? And I can almost guarantee it probably doesn't cost them anything. I could be wrong on that, but it's the other thing too is like this past summer there was some sort of goalie coaching something or other event. I don't even know what it was in Calgary. So 3 hours away from us, I had no idea it was a thing until I saw somebody share an article about a summary of the weekend after the fact. And I'm like, huh, maybe if I had more information on that, that would have been something. Maybe I would have taken the time and gone down to Calgary and spent a weekend and learned more from people about goalie coaching and all of that stuff, right? Like, to me, it's asinine that you have this organization that is a national organization trying to build a sport for its children, and they're so hush hush about everything. Like, to me, you should be out there like pushing everything that you have to offer and pushing every sort of resource you have, instead of putting your funds into like lawsuit cover up, like
we're
bank
we're not
accounts.
we're not getting into that.
No, we're not
Um
getting into that, but
so but okay, so yeah, so here's the thing. So I yes, you are absolutely correct. I mean, like I was as you were talking about the drills, like I was thinking about it's like I've even heard of coaches or of organizations saying like no, these are our drills and we hold the copyright to it or whatever. I'm like, the hell are you talking about? Drills are drills. Doesn't matter who came out with them, as long as they have some sort of developmental aspect to it, then yeah, fine. Yeah, Hockey Canada's out. Yeah, they charge you an arm and a leg for that for that portion or for that portion of that. Honestly, like I'm just scrolling through the rest of this and I want to talk about this slide here. I'm just scrolling through the rest of this slideshow right now, if you can even call it that. And it's just they're just throwing realistically, they're just throwing keywords out here: skating, positioning, save selection, basic puck control, rebound control. They just, the amount of times that I see these words thrown out over and over again: positioning, so on and so forth. It just these these trigger words, we'll call it. They keep getting thrown out over and over again. I want to talk about this instructors slash coaches thing here for a second. And this is kind of where I want to bring the text that I have into this as well, if I'm allowed to. Um, we all can agree that there is a lack of development in this country when it comes to goaltending. Not a lot of teams are bringing out goalie coaches, and which is why I asked that point earlier when it came to the USA hockey side of things, is that do they make goaltending level 1, what would be goaltending bronze, goaltending level 1 here in Canada, do they make that mandatory? It should be mandatory. I don't care what the league,
100%.
I don't care what the legality is behind it. I don't care what the logistics are behind it. It is for me, it should be a mandatory thing. Because goalie coaches, like, I mean, okay, I got to be careful how I word this. Goalie coaches like you and me, spread out throughout the province of Alberta, they are few and far between. There's a whole bunch of goalie schools, True North, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm just about to name drop a whole bunch of people. Um, there are guys out there, but there aren't enough to cover all of the hockey organizations, whether it be league sanctioned or not, in specifically this province and by extension this country. So for me, goaltending bronze, goaltending level 1 should be a mandatory
Of course.
requirement. Thank you. Jeez. And again, it's for me, it's going back to, you know, goaltending development starts right at U9, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna try to read this text without fully reading this text. So my buddy here had texted me saying that he thinks that a few main things for him out here when it comes to why goaltending development in Canada sucks is that there's not necessarily a lack of development, but a lack of understanding of what bringing a goalie coach out really entails. A lot of team practices that this guy go to, coaches are reluctant to give a lot of one-on-one time, and that can lead to troubles coming up with drills in one end that don't include a goalie. So lack of time and practices was the thing that he wanted to touch here, that he wanted me to touch on. And then even then says, like, if you are going to bring a goalie coach out once a week and the goalie coach is only given 10 minutes for an hour ice slot over 6 sessions, that doesn't really help. And we can go on and on and on with this text here, but he's got a point.
Yeah.
With that, it's like I've worked on teams where I've gotten maybe 15 minutes of session time.
Yeah.
Before the team jumps into a practice. It's gotten to a point now, and it was going to be like this if I was on a team this year, and I already had it kind of not set in stone, but set in stone enough where with the coach, that's like throughout a 7-day week. If I want goalie time, I'm tell the coach, like, hey, I need goalie time for day 1 or 2 or whatever, or we agreed that in a 7-day week there's 3 practices, I get goalie time on day 2 of practice, because that would be the prime for me. That would be the prime time to do it. And I'm not trying to take away anything from the player development side of things, but it's just there has to be that dedicated level of time allocated towards that, right? So if you are going to either bring a goalie coach out from a private goaltending company, or if you do have a dedicated coach, that should have the mandatory goaltending level 1 requirement to coach. There needs to be dedicated time to that as well. 10 minutes is nothing. It really isn't. So we need to start getting away from that from that mentality as well. I've been on minor hockey teams where we have 2 practices So, okay, one practice is dedicated to the goalies, or one practice half hour is dedicated to the goalies, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and that's like I was talking to Coach Troy last night. We were at the facility, and because he was talking about wanting to take, because he's fairly new to our organization this season, he hasn't done a whole lot with us, so he's just getting started. And so he was talking about starting to take some of the organization sessions, so away from the facility. And he was kind of asking me how it worked. And our one client, who's part of an unsanctioned league, so not under the Hockey Canada umbrella, they now, not all of the unsanctioned teams are like this, but they provide a lot of goalie development. And most of the time when we go out there, we get an hour with the goalies, whether it's an hour with both or half an hour with one. Well, they have one for the half an hour and then they switch. And so I was telling him this, and he's like, wow, really? Like, anytime I've ever coached, I have gone out and watched practice and then hopped in between the drills and given feedback. And so, to your point, that's a big problem. Um, when it comes to the required like course or whatever,
I know
uh,
I'm way out to lunch on that. I'm fully aware of that, but I think for me, it's got like there's got to be a coach that's dedicated
no,
for that.
like I 100% agree that there should be, because every coach has to take respect in sport, and every coach has to take whatever else that they have to take. Throw on an extra half hour to an hour course that just touches on the basics, cuz what irks me is there's basically two processes when it comes to coaches and goalies. It's either I don't know anything about this position, so I am not even going to acknowledge that you exist and just do your thing, or they think they're helping, but they're really not. Like, how many times do we hear a coach say, stand up more? How many times do we hear a coach say, come out of your net more? How many times do we hear a coach say whatever it is that you're just like, but that's wrong. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're actually better off not saying anything. Like, they don't understand that there are some times, like, you're running a drill that's a 4-on-0. Of course, your goalie's not 2 feet out of the crease because there's 17 backdoor passes that are about to happen. And if they're too far out, they're not going to get there. Or, you know, like, yes, everybody says goalies go down too much, and maybe they have a point to a certain extent, but if you play the position properly, if you track pucks properly, if you make saves in front of your body, if you lean your body into the puck, you can, even as an 8, 9, 10 year old, cover your top corner well in the butterfly. Now, you have to have really good technique to do it, and you get away with a lot less than you do in your 6, 7, but you can do it. And to me, like, I hate when people ask me, like, oh, are you more of like a, hybrid style? Are you more of like a stand-up style, like butterfly style, blocking style? It's like, I don't teach a style. I teach my goalies to track the puck, and that's going to tell them what they need to do. There's no need to stand up every time, because that's how you get burned with an ice burn. There's a reason why every single goalie in the NHL is not a stand-up goalie, right? So don't tell your kids to stand up more. Tell them to track the puck more. And that's where the issue lies. The people that are out there with the goalies all the time have no idea about the position. And if they are giving advice, 99% of the time it is wrong. And so now you have goalies that are trying to stand up on every single shot and they're getting beat low. Well, what do you expect?
Yeah.
A bit of a rant, but it boils my blood.
No, you're not. You're absolutely. I'll tell you a quick story here. So when I first started coaching with AAA Junior Oil Kings spring hockey team, we both my goalies were smaller than the crossbar, right? So the coaches were absolutely flabbergasted that I would be telling these kids to go down into the RVH when the puck's not necessarily in the corner, but when it's in that space between bottom of the circle and post area, something along those lines. And so they were like, "Oh no, they're going to get beat up high. They're going to get beat up high," and maybe they got beat up high once, twice, when in a given period. And so it's like, so they kept telling us stand up, and then they start getting beat in their feet more. So I was like, telling us like, no, don't freaking listen to your coaches. Listen to me because I know what I'm talking about, right? And so just because you're small, right? Again, like you had pointed out, Nathan, is you can still cover the top of your net even if you are down on your knees.
Yeah. And
Just
like,
got to add the technicality with that. So I'll go finish your point.
well, I was just going to say, you can stand up to make a save, and that's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
what's going to tell you if you need to do that or not is your eyes. If you're tracking the puck, then you'll know, okay, this is going high. I can stand up. I can make my save. But like, that's the thing. Like, there's no black and white. Like, a lot of these coaches think with goaltending, it's black and white. It's every single time you do this. But there's so many variables, so many situations. Like, you have to understand the game and react to what's happening and use the tools that you've built in your tool set to be able to make your save. So it's not as easy as, well, just don't go down or go down all the time. It's also not as easy as, well, you just got to come out more, because there are instances where you coming out actually hinders you. Like, you can be too far out of your net. And the other thing I see a lot of times too is, you know, and I don't think this is as common anymore as opposed to like a little bit more back in the day, but coaches yelling at their kids in the, like, their goalies in the middle of the game when the puck's at the other end of the ice to get off their goal line. But then the goalie comes out off their goal line, and then when the rush comes down onto them, they've lost their net, and now they're 10 feet off of their angle, and the player's like, oh, thanks very much, and hits the empty net because they're floating around. They have no idea where their net is. And
Right.
so I think that is probably the number one thing that will help, is regular coaching staff starting to get a understanding of the position and at least have a little bit of the basics, and even just have in their back pocket 10 simple crease patterns or skating drills and tracking drills, so that at the very least, if you have 10-15 minutes here and there, you can work on some simple fundamental stuff. Like, I don't know. It just there needs to be more love for goalies, and you guys need to stop just, you know, isolating them so much.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest problem, is nobody wants to be a goalie, because goalies are almost like the odd one out. And the only kids that actually are like goalies are the ones that are so passionate about stopping a puck for some weird reason. We don't know why, but a puck hits us, in a practice one day, and we're like, oh, that was fun. Let's do that again.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you don't have your average on the fence players being like, well, maybe I'll try it. And, oh, that was pretty fun. Maybe I'll go back, and like it just doesn't happen. There's a stigma around goaltending. There's a lack of support, a lack of development, and there's extra pressure. Like, these coaches expect their goalies to go out and stop 42 shots and, shut out the other team. And yet they don't give them the tools to do that. Like, they put all this pressure on these kids,
I'm
and they don't give them the support.
yeah, I totally understand what you're driving at here. And so there has to be a level of communication when it comes to that. Um and again, this is where I wanted to get into a podcast at some point about the communication between a goalie coach and a regular coach, because I think that's an interesting talking point. I'm just scrolling through the Hockey Canada guide, we'll call it. And as I'm reading more and more into this, there's a little bit of substance when it comes to this. Like, obviously, they have their divisional streams of community recreational hockey and competitive development. And I'm reading this further and further and further. And they have kind of like a skill structure. So September introducing technical skills, October develop, November develop technical skills, December refine, January, February develop and refine. A lot of this is the same thing over and over again, which supposed to an extent makes sense. Okay, and here's the rest of it here: February, March, April, May, August, so on and so forth. But for me, like, there's a lot more to that. I mean, again, like, they have like their level 1, like goaltending skills, level 1, level 2, level 3, and then they talk about advanced C cuts, which never once heard of, but all right. Anyways, that's I think we got to split this in like a 5-part series or something. Because we could totally go on about this for hours and hours and hours on end. And I know that you're a busy guy. I don't think we really had a structure. If we're talking about structure, I don't think we really had a structure for this episode. But I think definitely kind of just bringing the statistics that you had into this makes it interesting. And then it kind of, we're starting to break down the deep dive towards that. So I think the main takeaways from today's podcast would be is that there's a lack of understanding of the position. There's a lack of development from both an organizational and a association standpoint. And then there's a lack of communication when it comes to goaltending, and by extension, a lack of support when it comes to that. And I think that's a good foundation for us to build on this 5-part series, should we choose to do so, about what's wrong with goaltending in Canada. I know that there's going to be people in the comment section or in our inbox that are going to say, well, what are you guys doing to rectify this? What are you at True North Goaltending or the DIY goalie to rectify this? And my response to that is, well, we're doing what we're already doing. We're putting on these camps. We have this awesome brand spanking new facility, which by the time this episode airs, we'll already have done our grand opening, which will be a fun time. But we are giving goaltenders the opportunities for more development. Now, we're not necessarily on the cheaper end of things, because playing goal is not cheap whatsoever, which is a economical problem. We can go into economics about that as well, and why our government isn't exactly helping with that. But there are options out there. And I will say this, and this is probably going to be my hot topic, and I'm going to aim this directly at all of the goalie coaches within the country. Can we stop competing with each other, please?
You took my point.
Can we stop? Huh?
You took my point.
Can we stop effing competing with each other? And can we start working together? I understand there's business. Okay, now I'm going on my rant here. I understand that we run businesses. I understand that at the end of the day, we have to make money. I understand that there is a competitive edge to that. But can we, for the love of God, stop effing competing with each other and start working with each other, start spreading the ideology, or start spreading the ideology of ideas. That's a terrible sentence, but I'm going to go with it anyways. Can we stop with, oh, don't go to these guys because they don't know what they're talking about, or don't go to these guys because they're not going to teach you the way of how the game should be played, because the game should be played with a butterfly style of goaltending, or it should be played with a stand-up style of goaltending. And to the goalie parents, stay out of your kids' heads. Stay out of your kids' minds. Again, same deal. It doesn't matter how the game was played when you guys played. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Learn how the game is played today. Please. Save yourselves the headache. Save us the headache. I'm done.
You done? Okay.
I'm done.
Who hurt you?
I see, man.
Yeah.
Like I really need to get off social media. I see some of these takes. I see some of these posts, and I see what some of these goalie places put out, and I shake my head because it's such a bad take.
Yeah, I've learned that's not the way to go. And that was one thing Hutch had even mentioned too when we had him on the podcast, was he talked about the reason why they wanted to do the pro reads is because a lot of people were doing breakdowns of, when goalies made mistakes and stuff like that. And so they wanted to spin it positively and bring the pros on to break down what they did well. And that's a mindset shift that I've kind of tried to do better job of through my coaching career. And that was kind of the philosophy behind the DIY goalie, was we want, to have a resource. And I know there are others out there and they're good as well, but just build a resource for goalies who are limited by geographically, limited financially. Like there are a lot of places where you're hours away from a quality goalie coach. And that's not just here, that's it, like all
It's
around the
everywhere.
world.
It's 100% everywhere.
And you have issues where people can't afford things, and that's, so that was kind of why we wanted to do the DIY goalie, is to be able to offer some of that. But to finish off, I guess my thing, like there's a 3-part approach, I guess. So first off, the organizations themselves. So Hockey Canada, the provincial ones, USA Hockey, whoever it is, they need to provide proper resources to the people that need them, i.e., the coaches, the parents, the players themselves. Okay. So now the next step is the coaches, the parents, the players themselves need to take the responsibility of an open mind and being a sponge and taking that information on and learning from other people and being open and collaborative and talking to people in the industry and seeing what they're doing. And then you already touched on this and stole my point, but the third portion of that is now the training providers as well. So us, goalie coaches, all of that stuff, right? Like, need to also make sure that they're up to date and providing quality, because unfortunately not all private institutions, when it comes to goalie coach and player development too, but not all of them are in it for the clients. Some of them are just in it for the money. Some of them are, they have no idea, I guess, what's going on or what the current landscape of things are. And unfortunately, that can lead to its own set of issues. But to me, the 3 parts need to start doing a better job of working together. And that's kind of why, like this past summer with our True North camp, we opened things up to coaches, like regular coaches, to come on the ice with us with no charge. and we did a coaches seminar, and we offer that to the organizations we work with as well. Like, hey, we can offer a coaches seminar for you guys. Um, and then I've been meaning to do it for a while, but unfortunately, like I said before, the DIY goalie site is kind of on the back burner a little bit now, and with all the stuff going on. But I do want to make our coach's handbook like not cost anything and just put it out there and have people
Mhm.
like, I put it at a low price just because, wanted to try and make the DIY goalie a little bit more than just a hobby. But to me, I think the more I think about it, that was the wrong thing to try and put a paywall in front of. But um yeah, like, just if the resources, like, if you have the knowledge, don't gatekeep it as much as it's been gate kept, right? Like, we need to make sure that the whole goalie community has the resources that they need to be successful. And all three parties that I talked about, the organizations, the private providers, and then kind of the quote unquote frontline staff, the coaches, parents, players, they all need to work together and do a better job to get on the same page. The problem is there's too many pages, and I know there's issues not just in Canada, but I think it's really spotlighted in Canada. But that needs that's the biggest change I think that needs to happen for this to somewhat get resolved and move in a better direction, which I will say it is trending in the right direction. It's just not going fast enough. But compared to when we played, there is a lot more development and there are a lot more resources for goalies out there. So it's trending in the right direction. It's just not getting there fast enough.
Yeah, it's I like I look at it more at point three. You know, like you're right, points one and two. But I look at it at point three
Yeah, but that's because
because
you are part of point three.
I am part of point three, and
So
that's you're right. You're 100% right. But that's where I dilute a lot of my attention. But points one and two, you're absolutely right on that. And so there needs to be for lack of a better term, there needs to be a universal understanding
yeah,
of how this position needs to be developed. No one position or no one way is right compared to the other, but as long as there's a
a roadmap.
guideline, a roadmap,
Yeah,
a guideline
yeah.
somewhere in there. And I say that and I kind of feel bad about everybody that I just crap talked, but um like even like the hockey kind of like there's something there, but I don't know if it's necessarily what it should be.
Yeah, and here's the thing, don't get us wrong, like, obviously there are people putting in work, putting in effort, and there are good people trying to do good things in these organizations. Um, it's just the problem is one, it's few and far between, and two, there's, I don't know, there's just a disconnect there. Like, even I find just in general, like, at least around here, I don't know what it's like in other places, but even like the private side of goalie coaching has just gotten complacent. Like, it's kind of like, this is the way we've always done it. This is how we're going to do it. Like, camps today, like goalie camps today, are the exact same as goalie camps that we went to in the middle, like the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And it 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 just it yeah it I don't know. Does it work?
No.
Maybe,
No.
right? But
I say
like,
no.
it doesn't work good enough, right? And the thing is there's there needs to also be like, it shouldn't just fall on the shoulders of the private industry either, right?
No.
And that's like, I'm talking about like your businesses, right? It There needs to be a support beam there from the organization side of things too. And to me, that's the resources. They need to be the ones providing the blanket resources that every single person has access to. If you want a goalie drill, you can find it at Hockey Canada's website. If you want a bronze level coach or a coaching level 1, goalie coaching level 1, whatever, you should be able to log on, sign up, take it, and that's it. These organizations make enough in fees. And even if you didn't, I am sure that people would be just fine paying an extra 40, $50 in the year for their registration to cover the fees. Like if you take however many thousands of kids are out there, times it by an extra little bit and use that to build these resources, then fine, do that. But it should be, there should be some sort of support, and like you said, a guideline. Like there should be a Hockey Canada thing that says everybody at this level, this is your focus and here's how you approach it step
Mm-hmm.
by step, and this is what we're doing. Because now everybody's on the same page and now you have a proper development plan. You don't get that accomplished by just putting out a PowerPoint presentation with bullet points and vague words like a 2-word point.
Yeah.
So, anyways, before I get going again on some other tangent and
we're
rant,
we're we're definitely going to have to revisit this, or this is going to be like a multi-part series when it comes to that, because I think there's a few more things that I wanted to touch on today, but I don't think we're going to have the time to. Um, yeah, yeah.
it's
Anyways,
broken.
it's broken. It's 100%. It's 100% broken. I got to reach out to Wops out in Saskatchewan. I thought I did, but I didn't, because I know he'll have some thoughts on it. Um, I want to reach out to Wyatt Waslinchuk, one of my former bosses with goalie coaches, and he's a head coach of Minot State hockey, because he runs goalie coaches and talk about small towns and who's the nearest goalie coach. Their app has a really good um, solution to that, so I'd like to talk to him about that. Um, And then I think it's probably important. I mean, we keep pushing this, but it's probably important to get the parent side of things as well. Like, what is, I mean, Nathan? You're a relatively new hockey parent, right? With your kid going into this system. So just kind of hearing and seeing just kind of the goalie parent side of the equation as well, by extension. And I think it's probably would only be fair to give them a fair shake, is that if we did get a representative from Hockey Canada or from Hockey Alberta to kind of share their understanding, not turn it into a court session, but um, kind of play devil's advocate in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like I said, I mean, as much as we've been negative, there are a lot of people in these organizations trying to do good things, and good on you. Keep it up.
Yeah.
And at the same token, I will go on record and say that we do not have all of the answers.
No.
And I don't want it to come across that we're trying to stand on a soapbox and say that we're better than Hockey Canada or whatever, because again, there's a lot of good people doing a lot of good things. It's just frustrating as a position that's as important as goaltending. It's just asinine the lack of support that goalies get. And to be honest, we need to start having the conversation.
Yeah.
And we need to bring these things to light and start questioning, and that's how things are going to change. So all the ranting we did today, that being said, there's some light, there's some positives, and hopefully those can keep growing. Anyways, thanks again for tuning in, guys. Sorry for getting a little spicy today. I just well, both of us just get a little grinded on this topic.
Yeah.
But thanks for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, share it with a friend. Give us a like, a subscribe on YouTube. Give us a rating, a review on your podcast player. that sort of stuff does a lot for us. We appreciate you guys a lot. We hope that we're at least helping a little bit, do our part. Again, there's more we can do too, but we're learning as we go as well. So if you guys ever need an answer to a question related to goaltending, you can hit us up. You can message us on any of the social media platforms, email at info@thediygoalie.com. Our goal is to better the goalie community. And yes, we do run a business, or I guess two businesses. And part of it is, I would love to have a full-time gig as a as a goalie coach, but it's more than just the financial side too. It's wanting to be a part of the solution, wanting to help build the goalie community up. And we very much appreciate you guys and helping us do that, because we can't do it without listeners, without followers, viewers, all of that good stuff. So shout out to you guys. Keep on keeping on. And Connor, you anything to wrap up here?
No, I guess I should say my piece. There, to echo what Nathan said, yeah, there's a lot of great people. There's a lot of great goalie coaches and a lot of great goalies in the goalie union. Um, and even the people who I did kind of blacklist, they're still good people. I just think they're anyways.
Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. Sure. Yeah, just we wouldn't have, or we wouldn't be in these positions without you guys, and so we want to make sure that we're doing our part to repay that in any way, shape, or form. So did it get heated? Yes. Did I probably say some things that I'm going to regret later on? Absolutely. But it's all part of the
That's what editing's for.
Exactly. I got to talk to you about that afterwards. It's but that's just the way she goes, and sometimes you gotta be the villain in order to be the hero, I guess. So that didn't make any sense whatsoever, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're on the YouTube side of things, Nathan, take us home.
Goalies, make some
saves. I knew it.
See you next week.